Testing 1, 2. Can you guys hear me in the back? Excellent, excellent. So welcome inside for another special event. Danny Schott, how many people know Danny Schott? Let's give it up for Danny Schott. Danny Schott is our poet in residence, and Danny has been putting together pretty classy poetry events for a number of years now. So we always appreciate what he does. And for this event, I guess I want to say it was sort of co-produced with Vera Sirota. So let's give it up for Vera. Vera is kind of wearing a few different hats today. She's also a reader. This is her cultural background, the Ukraine. And she also works now with the museum as our public relations person. And that means social media, a weekly newsletter. And we're so thankful she's joined the team, as they say. And she has such a positive, infectious energy that it's actually helped me enormously, I should say that. It's true, it's true. When you run a museum, you're kind of doing this and going up and down and up and down. And when Vera's around, you're more up than down. So I do want to thank her for that. Do want to say that we have a nice crowd in here today. We are broadcasting on YouTube and all the traditional social media platforms. So we're going to try to keep it clean, okay, which I'm not worried about. But this is a serious event, and so glad you're inside here to join us. Without further ado, let's give the warmest welcome to our poet in residence, Danny Schott.
Thank you, Bob Foster. As he mentioned, we're coming to you live. We have a good crowd here. We're also coming to you streaming on YouTube and Facebook right now as we speak. I'd like to thank the Hoboken Historical Museum, particularly Bob Foster, Rand Hoppy, Bill Curran, who it's always a pleasure to see him when I walk in, and of course, Vera Sirota, who's a terrific poet, but also happens to be the public relations person here. I'm really excited about this event. We've got some distinguished and dynamic poets here for you today. Before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge and recognize our responsibility to the original caretakers of this land, water, and air, the Lenape tribe, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. The Lenape named Hoboken, which in their language means land of the tobacco pipe or long pipe. The Lenape were promised their own sovereign state in New Jersey for fighting against the British during the American Revolution. The government lied about that. Yeah. Today we're here not to celebrate, but to bring attention to remind people that Russia's war against the sovereign nation of Ukraine continues on day 564 since the invasion. The poet Percy Shelley once said a lot of things, but he said, "Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world," which basically means the imaginative practice and political activism are inextricably intertwined. They are. Let us begin with a poem. And I'm going to, one thing, I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to screw up pronunciations along the way, but I'm trying my best with this. But I'd like to begin with a poem by Lyudmila Krasnanska from her book, Today is a Different War. You are with your country, wherever you are. With its air raids, you huddle, looking at your watch, waiting for the all clear, pressing against the wall, looking at the sky. You wait. Is it coming or not? Wherever you are, you hear the whistles and cracks. You, refugee, don't look like those tourists, men in t-shirts and jeans, pampered women, calmly window shopping, the need to buy linen napkins for an idyllic home, children with long fuzzy hair, no one with a terrified cat in a carrier. No one cries. The children of every country giggle and chatter. My country's children are quiet and look to their grown-ups, eye to eye, as if asking, how dangerous is this? When it flies, when it bangs and crashes, my country's children nervously pack their things. They sort what they've found: shrapnel, bullets, a piece of rusty wire, everything that the Russian world, which they say my country is part of, sends to my country under the cover of humanitarian aid. The grown-ups avert their eyes. Okay, you're going to hear some heavy stuff here today, but it's okay to clap because we are still alive and here in New Jersey. Okay, this doesn't mean anything to anyone except me, but we changed the order a little bit. Our first poet is going to be Olena Jennings. Olena Jennings is the author of the poetry collection, The Age of Secrets, published by Lost Horse Press in 2022, and the chapbook Memory Project. Her novel, Temporary Shelter, was released in 2021 from Cervena Barva Press. Her translation from Ukrainian with Oksana Lutsina, sorry, I told you I'm going to screw this up, of Nobody Knows Us Here and We Didn't Know Anyone by Katerina Kalitko, was released in September 2022 from Lost Horse Press. Her translation of Vasyl Makhno's collection, Paper Bridge, was released in October 22 from Plamen Press. Her translation with the author Yulia Musakovska, The God of Freedom, is forthcoming from Arrowsmith Press. Her textile art has been shown at Bliss on Bliss Art Projects and the New York City Poetry Festival. She is the founder and curator of Poets of Queens. Let's hear it for Olena Jennings.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to be reading a few poems from my collection, The Age of Secrets, and they all express my connection to Ukraine. The first is called Seamstress in War. She moved the needle through the fabric. The sewing machine was sometimes the only sound coming from within the house, more staccato than the intermittent shots outside. The sound of her own textile was her imagination in thread. She remembered when she had started to make her own clothes. She made a dress for a date. It was the red her grandmother hated because it stood out in the desolate streets, where the buildings cried, drops of water falling down windows, dew on the shingles. They went to a cafe and someone opened her purse and stole the last of her coins, still warm with her hands. It was more than her purse. It was her body opened up and taken, thin thievery. It was then that she started to make collections. She collected buttons. She collected pill cases. She collected foreign coins. She collected red lipsticks. She collected vials of perfume. She collected gum in silver wrappers. She collected spare keys. She collected safety pins. She collected passports. And the next poem is called Poppies, which is a common flower in Ukraine. And my grandmother always had a vase of silk poppies on her dresser to remind her of Ukraine. So this is what it starts with that idea. Poppies, red and blue on the dresser, dust in the folds, stretching towards the dim lamp, click of lipstick cap, spritz of perfume, snap of clutch, and she will turn the light off. The flowers will wither into their dreams, and I will put my lips into their centers, ready to blow away pollen. The yellow dust caught in my eyes. When I see for a moment from her perspective, I look out into the yard. I see myself throwing a rubber ball into the flowers, crushing their petals, the place where I convinced my brother there was a snake. There was something to fear. To make up for my deception, I gave him one of the plastic flowers, deceiving him again, pretending I bought it at the corner gas station from which we had collected all of our dishes with the points we got from pumping gas. I wanted to make up more than that now. Absences, when I would become like that yellow dust, a quiet star. The next poem is called Chervona Ruta. Chervona is Ukrainian for red. Red are blood, poppies, cabbage, garnet. Red is the ruta flower on the night of St. John's Eve. The ruta flower has yellow blossoms, but on the eve of the summer solstice, the flower is said to turn red for a very short time. The flower brings love to whomever finds it. We go into the forest to look, but not far enough to lose the sound of voices. We write songs about the ruta. We could find it in the words someone sang to their guitar. I listened to the strumming while I waited for a ride home. It was the day after the music fest, and the ruta had connected me with the wrong person, his body against mine like the lumps in the tent floor beneath my skin. Maybe the search for the ruta was what mattered, finding myself in the place where I started. Thank you. And there are just a couple more. The next one is called American Morning, but it's more about the Ukrainian American experience. My mother cooked from a space inside, pressed together with the hot air of borscht, looking for lives in beet-reddened newspapers, looking for our lives against the backdrop of the bell. A man's hands wrapped around the rope, the echo in our chests and the incense wafting towards us. Digging my fingers into the soft varnish of the pew, pretending I am back in the garden, soil beneath my nails, on our knees before the cucumbers, wiping prickly skin, tempted. The raspberries failed. They weren't part of our past. I could only find one. We tried to push our way into the future, fruit breaking from solitude, the cucumbers in the middle seat of the Oldsmobile as we took a wrong turn, blinded by the sun. And the next two short poems are about the war. The first is called Seasons. The ice cream in the winter in front of the gallery. I bite into the cold and feel the pain in my teeth. We are always looking for warmth. During the protests, our bodies close. Our home is in the streets. We make our home. Finally, the bees swarm around baked-in cherries. A painting is burned in the gallery during the battle. Winter. We wrap the cold around us because we couldn't do anything else. What we call it. The village has turned into a sleepy suburb. I look into the woman's window and see the living room. Her body stretches to reach a glass. She fills it with warm tea. Her lips fill a lemon wedge. She cringes with joy. There is the village where the tiny pig that my grandmother loved too much was stolen, and her life was stolen. In another country, she tried to remember. She brushed her mother's silk scarf across her cheek. She tried to make her body remember. She reached into a container of flour to feel something. And the last poem I'll read is from Vasyl Makhno's book, Paper Bridge. It's a translation that I did. And since he'll be reading as well here, we thought we'd kind of do a little crossover. So this is his poem, Paper Bridge. Here is a room, a chair and a bare table. You can't carry it on your back or cover it with a manuscript or hide it. Sleep frees me. Stop writing outside the door. August is ablaze. Sand flies into the room. Here is a road, the Long Island Railroad. I choke on the air in my mouth. Somewhere ahead is the earth's edge, Montauk. And the beach is like a manuscript, a world covered with living and dead seagulls, their nests buried in the sand. Here is the book I am writing for myself. I write at night, lying in the grass, collecting pages in the morning. I search for a thread or stones or words. The train station burnt grass, it's all the same, a conductor or a customs agent. Here the shadow of the table is carried out, then a chair, and then grass, cutting across the floors, walls, and concrete. Wings rustle, paper crackles. In the seagull's eyes, blue sapphire. In the hawk's eyes, mother of pearl. And you carry your manuscript towards the train station. Here the train runs past stones and birds' nests, past letters and pages, to underground wells and celestial rivers, as you build a bridge out of paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Olena Jennings. That was terrific. Let's hear it again. Okay, I should have mentioned this before. The name of this event is Read Kalyna, Poetry for a Free Ukraine. And let me explain what the title is, basically. The red, I'm going to mess up this name too, viburnum shrub, or Kalyna, is a symbol of Ukrainian resistance dating back to ancient times. She is immortalized in a traditional Ukrainian song that was recently recorded by Andriy Khlyvnyuk of the band BoomBox and a member of the Ukrainian armed forces. So that's why we're here, what it's called. Okay, Vasyl Makhno is a Ukrainian poet, prose writer, essayist, and translator. He is the author of 14 collections of poetry, most recently One Sail House from 2021. He has also published a book of short story, The House in Baiting Hollow, a novel, The Eternal Calendar in 2019, and 5 books of essays. The Gertrude Stein Memorial Cultural and Recreation Park, Horn of Plenty, Suburbs and Borderland, and Biking Along the Ocean, and From Consonants to Vowels, an encyclopedia of names, places, birds, plants, and other things, this year, 2023. He translated Zbigniew Herbert's, James Zuber's, and Anne Freilich's poetry from Polish into Ukrainian. Makhno's works have been widely translated into many languages. His books have been published in Germany, Israel, Poland, Romania, Serbia, and the US. He is the recipient of the Kovalev Fund Prize, Serbia's International Povel Moravy Prize in Poetry, the BBC Book of the Year Award, and the Ukrainian Jewish Literary Prize Encounter. Vasyl Makhno currently lives with his family in New York City. And I got to tell you this, a few years ago, I was like emceeing an event with Eve Packer and Makhno at a library in New York. And when I heard his work, I was immediately, wow, this guy's a great poet. So when we put this together, I was like, Vera, we got to get Vasyl Makhno as part of this. So let's have a warm round of applause for Vasyl Makhno.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this amazing reading with my colleagues, the beautiful poets. And it's my second visit to Hoboken, unfortunately. Okay, I'm gonna to read, I will be start from one poem. Title is War. This poem I wrote in February 24th in 2022, in the first day of Russian invasion on Ukraine. In this poem, I used a couple Ukrainians details. One of them, it's Pavlo Tychina, it's a great Ukrainian poet of 20th century, and the Prince Igor, and the tale of Igor's campaign, etc. Okay. War. Lord, the way Tychina writes, and Biely, and Bloch, and Yesenin, the way they surrounded us on all 4 sides. Give us strength and power, hastily packed suitcase and bread. Naturally, their sly foxes lie, that we have neither shields nor centuries. Igor leads us somewhere over the dawn with his regiments, today with the February snow, and tomorrow with a bloody shield. And their dark forces come from Tmu Tarakan and Mokshas and Chud, shot at our location, hit at the position we take. So is there the tale of Igor's campaign? And what is there in ancient sound? You jumping barefoot as a wolf, spreading the spit of the devil, reach the rivers and borders, reach my cleansed heart. Your blackened icons can't even be cleansed with milk. Lord, the way Tychina writes about Kyiv, Messiah, about the country. Why didn't we learn this poem by heart. Bleed my heart. Bleed. Thank you. Oh, okay. This is poem translated by Olena Jennings. Okay, the next poem title is My Father, and this poem translated by Oris Popovich. You know, my father the same age as John Lennon. When John was singing, it was batteries he clamped on. And on weekend, we would also try one on as a car mechanic. Something would always break. Plug flooded by gas would fail. Beatles would fly to India. Winters were passing by, and the flower children were breaking stocks and stanzas. You know, the little town, few cars, city hall, market square, cobblestones set over centuries like verse in rhyme, window panes in buildings vibrating like violin decca. End of the 50s, the children of war, a damaged generation, wearing a Cheviot coat in rubber boots knee high, standing at the bus stop was my mother, a student. You know, in the music classes, accordion, guitar, or dombra, music demands a sacrifice as if from a donor. The school of Ed Orchestra in the former synagogue, now converted to the district club, is kept warm by a kerosene stove. In his brand new gazon, dragging repeatedly on his cigarette, my father is waiting for my mother on the corner. You know, after a few years, their failed marriage fell apart. The music had suddenly changed, and I grew and fattened up. John, who married Yoko, had its throne of hippies, started singing about flowers, altered his wardrobe and style, grew a beard mustache like a prophet in the wild, allured by freedom and the leftists. You know, that little town will also change as military units occupy and barracks airmen and corpsmen. The spring and fall drifties as cyclical as natural season. Will sing John's song about yesterday and the day before, about unrequited love, singly and in chorus, about all that passes by. You know, on the street corner where my father evaded my mother, the music has not changed. It sounds the same for me, and I hear that orchestra of tune and of beat. John lying on the pavement, shot in New York, in her darker glasses by now the aged Yoko, and the music like divorce I simply don't get. You know, because my father was the same age as John Lennon. I see him as a young man speeding in the cab on his gazon, while my mother stand on the corner waiting, humming, "Let It Be." She is his girl and he hurrying, flying. They have but a brief moment left, indeed only an eye wink. But their music and the music of the Beatles will remain with me. Thank you. And I don't know what is my time. Okay, one long poem and one short. Okay, it's be enough. That title is Advice on How Best to Write Poetry. One your eyes, read Cyrillic letters. The other, Latin alphabet. Some write verses from left to right. Yehuda Mihai wrote from right to left. The golden Chinese poets wrote many works in columns. These few black kernels of cinnamon, just the right spice for the cookery of world poetry. But regardless of the time in which they lived, on their method of writing or the alphabet they used, they all loved wine and women, mountain ranges, fried fish, salad of red peppers, wasting money and welching on their debts, and all hunted for the sounds, like a grown kids with net for catching fish and butterflies, or like terminal alcoholic, hopeless drug addicts, sexual perverts, heirs of Narcissus, Odyssey, Orpheus. Some wrote with pen, others cut their veins and dipped into the blood, thickened by alcohol and drugs, a fat needle, the proboscis of Stanolan bee, but regardless of the liquid drying on the paper or the cuff of the sleeve, the poetry recovered, but any method became color and sound, excrement, vomit, and sunnies. Now and then, a dying bee may fall onto your window sill from the another space, and while lying on its back, it's a flaying away of the viscous autumn air, you renounce all advice on how to write poetry. For when you watch how yachts prepare to leave this bay, and how sailors say goodbye to their temporary lovers, and how tar disappears head down like a corpse in water, and how thousands of saxophones like a question mark digest in their stomach the green droppings of music, and how the electric current passing through the thinnest string of violin reduced to ashes and slightest resistance of a false note. You know, that is a dangerous to tread of footbridge laid out by a full moon on the broad cascaded body of water, and therefore any kind of advice will prove to be useless. Seems to me someone has tried this before. Thank you. And last one for this reading, also a poem translated by Olena Jennings. The title is You Have It All. You have it all. You have bread to sustain you, and the cloak on the river on your arm. In the wheat field, rye. In the rye field, wheat. And you have something to go with your bread. The road, the river, the hill, the slope. Light for your footsteps, wind for your wings. And what more do you need? Everything else will find you. Your cloak will slip from your arms, and the river will pass you by. And the stone will be your pillow, and the river bank your bed. A comet tail will be etched upon your brow. And so you have wheat with rye, and you have cabbage and peas. No worries, no sorrow, a key, a door, a lock. So, who took care of you and was so generous? Who pierced the river with the sky and opened the door for you? Thank you very much.
We have people watching live, and I'm going to ask Vasyl to come back and read us one short poem in Ukrainian for those people who are watching live and want to hear it in their native language. Okay, can you do that for us?
It's a surprise for me. Okay, hold on. Too much poems I write. Okay. Okay. Кропива. In Ukraine, in English, needle, right? Кропива. Я знаю, кропива, цвістиме пізно, дощі. Я забув від Тойоти і дому ключі. Ніхто мене не шукав, навіть жінки. Відкладали личинки, земляні жуки. На полях садили кріп, бараболю. Я не був там ні з тією, ні з тою. Я сховався за місто, яке любив, навіть якщо б, або навіть якби, канделябрив каштанів, бавовна пуху, дзищали парламутрові мухи, жовтів молочай, рухались залізниці, і достигали бджоли й солодкі суниці. На мене чекала мама і батько водій, вони сиділи при березі, при воді, майже Бергман, сульнична галявина, так далеко, посмішка мамина, ховаюсь за стовбур старої сосни і вдивляюсь, вони це чи не вони. Заховаюсь у хащі зелених кропив, бо заходив в кропиву, коли курив, заїдав кропиву і боявся мами, шукала мене за лисячими слідами, за кров'ю кропиви, зеленою масною, і видивляла очі за мною і за рікою. Молоді дощі над моїм містом і на ріці, і на синьому серці, рубці та синці, дощ мене не жаліє, кропива жалить. Мама каже з ріки до мене з жалем, що якщо куритиму, не зможу рости і не зможу ріку на собі нести. Дякую. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasyl. That was amazing. Did I mention before that it's 564 days since the Russian invasion of Ukraine? Well, we're here today, Poetry for a Free Ukraine, and these are some organizations in terms of helping out, humanitarian aid, etc. Stand with Ukraine, and here are the organizations: the Ukrainian Museum, Ukrainian Institute of America, Yara Arts Group, Shevchenko Scientific Society, Ukrainian Jersey City, Ukrainian National Home of Jersey City, Razom, United 24, World Central Kitchen, Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, Vasilka, Ukrainian East Village Restaurant, which those of us who know, and Slava Restaurant. These are places you can go and help out in whichever way you choose. You know, one of the worst ways to introduce someone is to introduce them in relationship to you. So I'm just going to say this. Bob Holman and I go way back, and we have a lot of history, good history. Bob Holman's Jewish grandparents, Solomon and Sophie Geller, emigrated from Kamyanets, Ukraine in 1916. With Yara Arts Group, he toured Ukraine and performed at La Mama as Captain John Smith in Captain John Smith Goes to Ukraine. At La Mama, he played Tsar Nicholas and some crazy poet in 1917 to 2017, Tichna Zadan and the Dogs. Playing David Berliak, he is devising the play Slap with Julian, Verlana, and Susan. Slap was to have premiered in Ukraine this past spring, but due to circumstances beyond our control, maybe last spring. Instead, he's in New York City performing at the Kharkiv as the Kharkiv tour guide in Radio 477 and ending the show with a poetry reading with Sergei Zadan and sometimes Eugene Hutz. He has written forewords for poetry books by Zadan and Ola Lishia. He is a founder of the Bowery Poetry Club and the Endangered Language Alliance, and has published 17 books and has taught at Princeton, Columbia, NYU, and Bard. Let's hear it for the one and only Bob Holman. Give him a nice, warm Hoboken welcome.
It's okay like this. Good catch, Bob. I love Hoboken, you know, and I love you guys here at the museum. It is a treat to be here, and it's a real to my Ukrainian pals and even my Russian pal over there, Anton. He's an honorary Ukrainian as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I know there's never mind. So I'm here today for Artem Ryzhikov, who is on the front lines in Ukraine, a cinematographer who's worked with Ram on the film Ram made called The Russian Woodpecker, which you can find online. And it's a crazy, wonderful film about Chernobyl. And we've known Artem for a while, and it's very moving to know that these poems about the war were written by him in the last few months, and that we've corresponded with him as recently as this morning when he's saying, can you please put this video on it? We don't know how to do that, but we do have word from Artem in the Maidan demonstrations in 2013-14. He was actually shot while he was photographing. But so far so good in the front lines. He was in Bakhmut, and we love you. He said that there are two things you can do in a war: write poems and kill people. There you have it. I'm going to start with a haiku of my own and then go into these extraordinary poems by Artem Ryzhikov. This haiku by Bob Holman. Bless the broken down tanks, O Lord. They provide a place for us to hide behind. O Lord, let the keys be inside. I love it. Haiku's getting applause. You should actually do this with one hand clapping. But you do know what the sound of one hand clapping is, don't you? It's exactly the same as the other hand clapping. Okay. We're going to start with Artem's poem, Making Love with War. Deprive me of my chastity. Take my cherry. It's the first fight. Anxiety, desires. I hold my rifle like my lover's breast. I'm hugging war tight into my body. Immature, chaste, a virgin. I hurry into my first battle. Bullets whistle by me, tearing out the hymen. The first blood spills on this bed of a battlefield. Condoms and birth control pills are spitting out of the machine guns, turning to pieces in the fiery friction, alluring aroma arising from the fire of the ejaculating projectile fragments. The earth trembles like a sweet caress. Our trench creaks like a bed of love. After the explosion, the soil knits back into a blanket. Minds lie to me with wantonness, waiting for anybody, ready for anyone. Enemy bodies are splayed into divining signs, torn, twisted, leaky, spent from the orgy of death, the dirty merrymaking in the trenches, the cannon barrels, demented phalluses give birth to devils. For from the vulva trench emerge the miscarried soldiers, orgasms to kill for, orgasms to die for. So this poem is called Poppy Field, and red, the viburnum was mentioned, and already Olena talked about the poppies, silk poppies that her mother has on the television set there, I guess. Our Tim sent an extraordinary photo of the poppy fields by Bakhmut, where he was fighting. Okay. B bullets buzz between positions at zero line. The peristaltic path, the movements of a dying snake through a red poppy field. I'm as visible as an unfisted palm to both sides. I hope my own side doesn't shoot me on the crimson poppy field. The flowers are sweating the dew of tension. I hope this time they pass me by. I run like a mad horse through the ruddy poppy field. Minds bloom from the ground instead of flowers. Hails of grenade rain from the ordnance in the pomegranate poppy fields. Something hot runs down my forehead. Got wet, got soaked, got silent, falling like fragile glass on the bloody poppy field. When it's dusk in the steppe, you can hear the flowers cry out full of pain. It's the voices of those who died. They're saying these words. I'm a poppy flower in the field. Funeral of a military brother. I carry my brother in a coffin. It's time for the final farewell. What should I say to your mother? What can I say to the ghost face of your son? The orchestra starts up, wakes up the winds. Will this tune heal your wounds, my brother? I'll kneel here with the blue and gold and pray. Please come back to your mother. At the gravesite, on a hump of dirt, 3 privates at attention in uniform. That's not a tear on their faces. It's a bullet. One last shot from the sky. Under the mourners quietly sobbing in unison, let me shout out to you one of our secret battle epithets. The one that starts out with, F you, Ruskies. I slip a cartridge into your coffin. May at least your dreams be peaceful. A well-trodden path along the cemetery wall leads us back. A single woman stays behind at the grave, a mother weeping for her son. The best soldiers always stay on the battlefield. Look at the war. It's a mirror. I touch the reflection coming into focus little by little. Will I stay here a long time? Am I afraid to stay with the best? Okay, this last one, our pal Olena has agreed.
Switch and Vasyl, because
Vasyl wants to read. Come on up here, Vasyl. I love switches and changes and poems. Thank you, Vasyl. Here.
That's one?
Yes, that one.
Black
Here.
bag?
Black bag, but why don't you wear this so that we can get you, our Tim can hear. I'm not
okay.
good at this, Rami. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
here, slip this in your pocket,
Okay.
because I don't want
That
to.
one. Okay. Чорний пакет. Донецький узгірчатий пейзаж, чорним пакетом обмотаний бліндаж, одягнений у каску та броню, копаю, наче живцем, себе хороню. Землянка вирита по розміру труни, живуть зі мною комахи і гризуни. Води від дощу по коліна в окопі, чорним пакетом замотую стопи, під обстріл не можу піти в туалет, опорожнююсь в окопі в чорний пакет, в посадці працює гранатомет, скрегоче від страху мій чорний пакет, у небі несуться уламки ракет, чи врятує намет мій чорний пакет, щодуху мотаю собі турнікет, прорвало осколком мій чорний пакет, за плівкою світло, блищить силует, содуха згорає, мій чорний пакет, тримаю пару троянд у букеті, до жінки вертаюсь у чорнім пакеті.
You know, just like in Vasyl's own poems, you know, you hear the rhyme and the power in the original language. Paquet, just the way to not bag. Anyway, in English, black bag. And you heard Donetsk at the top of the poem, and that's right, the first word of the poem now. Donetsk, Donetsk, rugged landscape. Our trench is covered with a black bag. Outfitted in helmet and armor, I dig as if I were burying myself alive. Our dugout in the trench is about the size of a coffin. And we have lots of roommates, bugs and rodents. When it rains, the water comes up to our knees. And I wrap my feet in a black bag. You can't go to the toilet when you're under fire. You just empty yourself into a black bag. Up front, the grenade launcher is an assembly line. I twist a tourniquet tight with all my might. Missiles flying in every direction. Will our home be saved by our roof, the black bag? A splinter tears through my black bag. There is light. A silhouette shines. A beast rolls up my black bag. I hold a couple of roses in a bouquet. I come home to my wife in a black bag. So that's for you, Artem, and for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob. That was amazing. You know, originally the plan was, okay, Bob Holman's going to go first and stuff. And then I got here and he was like, well, I don't really want to go first because I have to do some writing. And I was like, okay. And then for the next half hour, I saw him scribbling furiously. And it was sort of surreal seeing him hold up the poems in his handwriting, but on the other side were typed his poems. Tell us what that was about, Bob. Like what?
It's, you know, Ron came up with the idea 3 or 4 days ago. And, you know, I got to tell you, in the past, all the things I've get from Artem have been through Ron because, you know, you're at the front and there's only so many things you can do there between the machine guns, right? And so it's you know, I mean, to be in contact with the person who's really there. So, and then Artem and I began to write each other. I mean, twice a few minutes awful. And then, and I'm writing on they came through. He sent also he written a lot. You know, it was a sent point calls, and this got the Ukrainian here, the English here, but it's just very rough translation. And I don't speak Ukrainian, but I do speak poetry, and I do know Artem, and I do, you know, and thanks to Olena, I'm no longer just an old white. I now hyphenated Ukrainian American. But so I went to work, and I worked this way before with rough translations, bringing them into a poem. So that's what happened. But what's here is I don't know if Artem is watching us or if he's, you know, dumping into a black bag. I have no idea, you know, but I know that Ron has got this video of this, so this will go to Artem and he'll see you all and us. And I was going to, at one point, read my own poems, but that's at another time. That's, you know, when Vasyl and I read our poems, we will do that. So that's how.
Well, thank you. Let's hear it again for Bob. Let's let people who are watching online know that we have a real live good audience here. Okay, and I do want to remind everybody we're here at the Hoboken Historical Museum, and it's such an honor for me as poet in residence to be able to do events like this. And I do ask people in the audience, this is a free event, but there's a donation box there. On your way out, you can slip something into it, I think, so that we can continue doing free poetry events like this. Anyway, our last poet, and last poet is not the right way to say it. I've had the chance to work with Vera Sirota over the past few months, and Bob talked about her energy earlier being infectious, and it's amazing, and it's so uplifting. Vera Sirota is the proud granddaughter of Ukrainian immigrants. She is the author of the brand new poetry book, We Bow to No One, from Bottle Cap Press 2023, this year. She works as the communications associate for the Hoboken Historical Museum and is co-founder of the West of Willow Poetry and Music Collective, was a thing unto itself. Let's hear it for Vera Sirota.
Thank you so much. I have to start by saying thank you to Danny. Thank you to our poets, Bob, Olena, Vasyl. It's such an honor to be here with you all. To my Hoboken Historical family, Bill, Bob, Rand, and my West of Willow family is here, and my biological family is here. So there's so much love that I'm feeling. The Ukrainian people are enduring war crimes, and I'm going to read 3 poems about 3 women. And this one in particular was very difficult to write. It'll be hard for me to read, and it'll be hard to listen to, but we're here right in the middle of an exhibit about gentrification and violence, and it's important that we bear witness to violence. So, assault is used as a weapon of dehumanization in times of war and peace. To any survivors who are in the audience or watching at home, no one can extinguish your light. This is a real woman. She was written about in the New York Times. She was held hostage in a potato cellar in Bucha. She was executed, and she was found wearing only a fur coat. May she rest in power. Merciful memories of an unconquerable mind. I was a little girl, age 6, when my family traveled for a summer holiday to Odessa. I distinctly remember the ivory columns of Plage Arcadia welcoming us. Donning my emerald bathing suit, I shouted with glee. I squeezed my papa's hand, dashing into the Black Sea. The waves enveloped my crown, salt seeping into my skin. I would float for hours, gazing at the seagulls, mesmerized by their melodies as they danced in the air, euphoric and free. Thank you. The second woman I'm reading about is Olga Harlan. I don't know if we have any fencing fans here or watching at home, but she's an Olympic medalist. And she played a match this past summer against a Russian opponent. And she had made clear, and many other of her fellow colleague athletes from Ukraine have made clear that during the war, they won't be extending their hand as at the end of a match. It's not anything personal. It's to call attention to the occupation. But unfortunately, the news media was policing her response. And I really believe that we should be holding the powerful accountable. So this is a letter to Olga Kharlan. And I just wanted to mention the first woman ruler of Ukraine, ancient Kyiv, is Knyahenya Olga. And that's her namesake. So she makes an appearance to support her sister. And the epigraph reads, Olga Kharlan, a four-time Olympic fencing medalist, was disqualified from the World Fencing Championship in Milan after refusing to shake hands with her Russian opponent. New York Times, July 27th, 2023. Nearly every news story failed to mention you extended your saber first, aligned with fencing standards adopted during COVID, an act of grace towards your opponent. Her left hand across her chest, feigning respect, when that very same hand was forming the letter V with her fingers in an earlier photograph, a symbol that stands for the task will be completed. What is that task? The task being war, rape, conquest of your homeland, touted by the Russian Ministry of Defense, incorporated enthusiastically in state propaganda. Yet, your sportsmanship stands on trial. Chants of no politics in sports chiding your ears. An 8-minute victorious bout, a final score of 15-7. What was on your mind when you faced her? I'll tell you. 200 of your fellow Ukrainian athletes murdered during the invasion. You were praying for them. You were praying for them. As if your blue and yellow fencing mask was bestowed from heaven by your namesake, first woman ruler, regent of ancient Kyiv, Olha, her dove white hands presenting your crown. Thank you. And the last woman that I am honoring is an elderly babcha, a grandmother, who in the spring of 2022, her village was under attack by the Russian army. And the news story that I read had a quote from her, and she said something to the effect of, "Come and get me." And I love that story. It reminds me of my own grandmother, it reminds me of my baba, and it reminds me of my own mother. So I think it shows us it's a cultural trait. It's better to go down standing than to live on your knees. So despite all odds, when the air raid siren blares, I remain defiant in my bed on the top floor of my home. I dare a Moscow missile to find me. I am 99 years old. I survived the Nazi invasion. I survived Stalin's terror. I survived Soviet oppressors. I will survive Putin's pillagers. Hope animates my heart because this is a national trait, a pride that propels us, a song that sustains us. We bow to no one and never will. Slava Ukraini!
A few weeks ago, Vera gave me a copy of her book, and it's a terrific book. Hearing them aloud brought the poems alive to me today. You could do the same thing in reverse. You've heard the poems, here's the book, and it is on sale here at the Hoboken Museum for a modest price. I very highly recommend it. You heard 3 poems from it. We bow to no one. Let's hear it again for Vera Sirota. Walt Whitman said a long time ago, great poets deserve, or maybe he said need, great audiences. You have been a great audience. Thank you so much for being part of this event, which I think is really important. Thanks. Have a great